My name is Adrienne Goseyun Vaughn, United States Army. I was military police and I am a combat medic, and I did 22 years of service. I joined 1992, right after high school. I did my graduation summer and then I joined in September. I got out the first time in 1998 in Germany, and I got called back to active duty in 2000 Twin Towers in 2001, I think it was. And from there, I've been in until 2018 when I retired. I come from a long line of military service members. I have my uncle, Christy Goseyun, my grandfather, Armstrong Dan Goseyun, my other grandfather, Armin Dan Goseyun. And on my mother's side, she's also had some relatives that have been in the military. But I think it was a big surprise when I told my classmates and high school friends that they're like, the military, I was probably not the person they thought that would go. But I grew up on just the military history. I learned a lot from the encyclopedias and a lot from the pictures that he had from overseas, Okinawa, Vietnam, Alaska. My grandfather was Air Force, and of course the recruiters came to the school, you do your ASVAB testing. And there was a selection of Marines, Air Force, and Army. My father was a big influence when he said, you can probably pick Air Force or the Army. Marines is a lot of infantry based, a lot of boots on the ground. He said his father was Air Force, but they traveled a lot and there wasn't a lot of duty stations, military bases that they can go to. And I talked to my health teacher, which was Mr. Scott Hawkins, and he was military. And he said he was in the Army, and he says, I used to jump out of helicopters and airplanes. And I thought that was so cool. So I talked to the Army recruiter, and he says, whatever job you pick, we will try to make it happen. And he took me through the step. He drove to see my father and I, and he really made an impact on me of how professional he was and how, I think, caring he was. But of course he was a recruiter, so that's their job. But that made an impact on me that was what I wanted to commit to, was the United States Army. And I have no regrets. You grow up on the reservation, so you're pretty much confined to that little area, and I wanted to see the world, and that was the opportunity that the military gave me. So when I went to basic training, I met a lot of people from different backgrounds, and that was in Alabama. I didn't have an accent, so people couldn't figure out where I was from. But I could tell, different areas of the United States all in one area. They call it trauma bonding, and it's because you go such a significant life-altering event in basic training. So you have to really connect with these people, and you have to learn where they come from and who they are. And a lot of times I was mistaken for being from the islands, Hawaii, or Filipinos, or they thought maybe I was Asian, because a lot of people didn't realize that there were still Native Americans that were in the United States. So when I told them I was from the Southwest and I'm San Carlos Apache, they would ask if I still lived in teepees or pueblos. How did I get to school? Did we ride horses? And then what religion I was, and I said it doesn't matter what religion you were. We have Catholicism and Lutheran and Baptist and Mormon. Pretty much when they do the recruiting and the statistics, and where everybody did a study of enlistments, it's always the minority, the biggest brand, or the biggest ethnic background would be the Native Americans, regardless wherever they are in the United States. The Sioux Indians, the Cherokees, the Seminoles, the Navajo, Apache, the Muskogee, every branch out there of being these tribal members, it's always, we're the minority, but we have the biggest numbers that enlist in the United States Army. And I think a lot of it is because it's something new that they don't have to be on the reservation for. And the funny part about it, as much as they have these big increase of numbers of everybody that joins the military, there was a lot of natives that were in the service, but I didn't see a lot of them when I served. A few, random people here and there, the first maybe 5 years of my military service. And then the last 15 years, I want to say I probably ran into a lot more natives that would be openly acknowledging, oh, are you Native? Or you look Native American, where are you from? And I met them later on in my military service than I did actually in the beginning. And I think it was because you just get lost in the numbers. But we want to say that we're a big number and a big contribution to the armed forces, whether it's Marines, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, the new one that comes out, and of course, just the Coast Guard. So whenever I meet them, you give that look like you look Native, but you don't really want to come out and approach them. But at the same time, you're like, oh, I see you. And you do like, hey, what's up? My father was a tribal police officer on the reservation. My godfather, the one that was in the military, was also a police. And I think that's why I wanted to do that, be public service and help. But I didn't like writing tickets. I didn't want to be that person at the gate checking IDs. And I was like, there has to be a job that I like in the medical field. And everyone in the military has always tried to change, or not change, but train in different positions and different things. And they give you a class called Combat Lifesaver, and how to give an IV, how to stop a bleeding, how to open an airway. And I was good at it, and I liked it, and I wanted it. So when I got recalled back to active duty, because I was still in that 8-year window, Uncle Sam says, hey, 9/11 happened, Twin Towers went down, and we're going to war. So you are called back to active duty. And when I got that letter, I was in shock, and I was like, I've never heard of anybody actually being recalled. And my husband said, well, you can go back as an MP, or you can probably maybe change your job. And if that's an option, that maybe you can find something you like. So I talked to the recruiter, and he says, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I like being a combat lifesaver in the military police section. And he said, well, you can be a combat medic in the military. And he explained, the training and the certifications. You have EMT certified, your CPR, your ABLS, which is, for the heart. And, you could go into a hospital, or you can go into the field. And at that point, that was the decision I wanted to do. And once I became a medic, you're part of a service support. You're not on that front line. You're there for the soldiers, of the troops, for the troops is what the MP's motto is. And for the medics is to conserve the fighting force. And that's, every branch of the military's got their own little mottos and stuff. And that's part of what I did, just to keep our soldiers going and being there and supporting. And I love the military medic portion of the whole time. And I tell everyone, there's so many branches in the medical field, but at the same time, for everyone that's getting ready to retire or getting ready to get out, I give them advice. Make sure you do this, get all your medical benefits, make all your appointments, all your aches and ailments accounted for, so that when you get out, that you're accredited for the service that you provide. And a lot of people don't really do that because they're so prideful, and they're like, no, I'm fine, I did 10 years, I'm good. I was like, but your back hurts, you broke your ankle, your knee is not as good as it was. And I tell them, the Army takes you in your youth, they take the best and greatest of you at that timeline, that it's only right for you to make sure you reap the benefits that you sowed for the military. So if you're entitled to being supported after you get out of the military, then, I'm that person as a medic that says, make sure you do this, make sure you do that. And I have no regrets of being in the military, just in the medical field. There's so many, so many variations of what you could support. You could be behavior health. You could be in, the blood services and radiology. You could be a CNA. You could be a nurse. You could be a surgeon's assistant. there's just so many things you can do as a medic. And then when you get out, it usually transfer over to being a EMT. You can be a flight paramedic. You could volunteer your hours and be a lifeguard at the pool because you are CPR certified. So I tell them, it's like, I have no regrets of being in the medical field. I love it. You know, we met as young privates. We're both military police. And since I can't even say seniority, but I outranked him by maybe a couple months. And he was my junior partner as we were military police. We pretty much, until I got out, he was rank and rank. And then when I had went to college, he gained the rank of sergeant. He stayed in after I retired, and he retired at 28 years as a sergeant major. Yeah, so I retired as a staff sergeant in the United States Army. So he stayed in longer, and he loved it. And he's an amazing, phenomenal leader. But he always credits that we started out in a good rooted military base, that, you know, we had friends and leadership, and it created this atmosphere that he knew that he loved the military and he wanted to stay in as long as possible. And I wanted to stay in, but at that point we had our daughter, so we had to make that decision of making sure she had a well-rounded education and she was grounded. So I decided at that point that I was going to retire and make sure that I was there for her for, you know, after school and the school commitments and programs and stuff. So he decided to stay in, and we supported him wherever he went. And we've been everywhere. And it's hard in the military life to have children because daycare and you're deployed. One parent or both parents are sometimes sent out by the military, and it's hard. And I see families that break apart, but you know, we try to always time our deployments. So if he's gone, I'm home, and if I'm gone, he's there with her. So somebody is always there. She wanted to join the Army, and we have a lot of military friends, and her godmother is a West Point, you know, retired. Well, her godmother is from West Point, and she graduated and she's retired now. And she says, you can do whatever you want, go wherever you want, and we will help and we will be there for you. So, you know, I think the officer side of the branch, I will probably, you know, really be her backbone if she needs help and stuff. But I don't know, children nowadays. When I first joined the military, it was still segregated. So we had an all-female basic training, all-female battalion. We had an all-male basic training, all-male battalion. So you didn't integrate until you went to church. You didn't integrate until you graduated and you walked across that big parade field. And then we slowly started the integration, I think, within about 2 years after I graduated, and people were integrating. And it wasn't so much as segregation, where it was the blacks and the whites and the Hispanics and the natives and the Asians. But over time, you just see, I'm always proud of the military being one step of, I want to say, the mainstream America, because we always set that standard of everybody in the military, everybody bleeds red. You wear the green, but everybody bleeds red. So regardless of your rank, your ethnic background, your national origin, if you are in the military, you belong to Uncle Sam, then that's your brother to the left, brother to your right. And I think that was probably one of the biggest impact. It made me really patriotic to know that there was no doubt in my mind, whoever I served with always had my back. They always had my six. And you make lifelong friends, regardless of wherever they come from. Whether it be a Somalian from Minnesota, you know, the harsh life in Mogadishu was one of my best friends in Hawaii, you know. And another girlfriend I met was from Kayenta in Navajo land. And my first battle buddy was from Massachusetts. And I was always happy that she was with me, and she was taller, smarter, faster, beautiful. But she always backed me up, and I always loved her because she knew Stephen King. I think the biggest thing wasn't so much as being as Native American. I think it was just being a military woman. Because I think when I first joined, the first impression a lot of people that had was like, oh, you'll meet someone, you'll get pregnant, you'll get married, and you'll leave. So your sustainability is maybe 2-3 years. That's all you're giving to Uncle Sam. And that was a choice. If you were in the military and you became pregnant, then Uncle Sam and the military, regardless what branch, said, okay, you can't be pregnant. So now your commitment and focus is on something else, so you have to get out. But when I was joining, it's an option. You can get out or you can stay in. And I think a lot of times there was that bias of like, well, women can't be in combat. Women can't be serving overseas in tours. Women can't serve with infantry. But I'm going to tell you, as a combat, well, not even as a combat medic, as a military police woman, a soldier, you're expected to be in combat on that front line. You are doing the route controls. You are being that first impact that a lot of outlying forces will encounter. And it helps sometimes to have a female in your group. And when I was in the military, I was maybe one female out of 20 assigned to a platoon. And when we did our patrols out in Bosnia, it was all males, and there I was in the midst of it. And they didn't treat me any different. I didn't want to say they coddled me. They pretty much expected me to carry my own weight and, to be part of the team, and that's what I did. I think over time, you come into that combat situation, and there are probably, for every female out there that stood her ground and fired that round back, stood her ground and didn't run, there was maybe a younger, scared soldier that maybe had retreated. So I always say that it doesn't matter who you are and what you have has integrity in your heart. And then when we deployed, and everybody that went to Desert Storm, everybody that went to Iraq and Afghanistan, you had females in those patrols that were getting shot at, that were getting bombed. And I switched to MOS from being a military police and being a medic assigned to an infantry unit that it was a suicide mission out to go clear these routes. And you knew that the route wasn't cleared, so you had bombs that were probably left and right. So you didn't know what you were going to get to. And if something happened in the front, they didn't yell specialist, sergeant, or whatever. They yelled medic. And it didn't matter if you're a female or male. As long as you knew your job to save a life, to sustain life, that golden hour, the platinum 10 minutes, you knew how to do a 9-line. It didn't matter if you were male or female. As long as you knew your job and you wanted respect. I think I was deployed with my husband, and I was telling him, my day, this is what happened today. This is what we were doing. And I said, I knew that I won the trust of my soldiers that I went out with when they called me Doc. I said, Doc. And I'm tired, I'm dirty, you're just drained. And I was walking to the chow hall, and I was walking with some other soldiers, and they're like, hey, Doc. And I look up, and I'm like, what's up? And you just keep walking. But I was so proud. And I told my husband, I said, it wasn't just a couple of days ago that I didn't know if we were going to make it back or if something was going to happen. But the people that you go out with and the people that you come back with, they're your brothers and sisters. And I was so happy. I was proud that they acknowledged me as, not as female medic, not as a rank, but just the title of Doc. I am a proud veteran. My godfather, when I went through my sunrise dance, I just knew he served in the military. But I didn't realize the history of his service, and he was a Vietnam veteran, and he had earned the Purple Heart, and he had served with the Special Forces. And it wasn't until I joined the military that he came forward and told me, who he was in the military and the services that he provided. And he tells me that his near-death experience and how he tries to make every moment count when he comes home. And now that he's home, he's lived a good life. And he tells me that I need to do that too. So I do. I have a beautiful daughter. I have an amazing husband. And I'm blessed.